Hello everyone, Fred here. In this installment of TPP Dynamite, I'm going to be discussing my thoughts and feelings on some recent news that's dropped about a follow-up movie that's coming in the not-so-distant future for a long-ended TV show called Monk. First things first though, if you haven't already, let me encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I regularly post reviews of films, books, and movies on this channel. I'm also an author of adult and young adult mystery novels. To date, I've released 3 books, The Women in White, The Lethal List, and most recently, Textbook Murder. They're all on sale now, and there are purchase links in my video description below. With that in mind, and without further ado, I'm going to dig right into my topic for today. So last week, some official news dropped that veteran and venerated actor Tony Shalhoub would be soon reprising his Emmy Award-winning role of Adrian Monk from the long-past TV show called Monk for a follow-up movie. I don't know how many people out there remember this series, but Monk was a mystery comedy drama that aired on the USA Network from 2002 to 2009. It starred Shalhoub as a brilliant private investigator named Adrian Monk who suffered from OCD, germophobia, and about 1 billion other various tics, phobias, and mental health issues. Adrian was also consistently tortured by the unsolved murder of his wife, Trudy, and his investigation into that murder was a thread of serialization that tied together the show's 8 seasons. Monk was consistently highly successful for USA in the ratings. It even held the record from 2009 to 2012 for the most watched scripted drama episode in basic cable television history for its series finale, Mr. Monk in the End, Part 2, which was watched by 9.4 million people. The series was also critically acclaimed, winning 8 Emmy Awards, 1 Golden Globe Award, and 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards. Monk really was one of those shows, like House and a few others, that capitalized in the early 2000s by using what was, at the time, a rather unique storytelling hook of portraying damaged or morally ambiguous lead characters who were brilliant problem solvers but also seriously messed up in their personal lives. I first discovered Monk about 6 years after it ended, and I fell in love with it then. It had its issues, no pun intended, and it did require quite the suspension of disbelief when it came to the portrayal of police procedure and many of the Ruby Goldberg machines used to commit most of the murders that Monk had to solve. But still, for the most part, the Agatha Christie-style mystery format was highly addictive to me. Monk also always seemed to strike the right balance between comedy and deadly seriousness. Part of the show's comedic bit was how Monk's reaction to his many different mental issues would always annoy or amuse people around him, and how often those issues were played up to hilarious effect in story. But at the same time, the comedy wasn't ostentatious, and Monk as a character was always treated with respect by the writers, if not other characters in the story. Tony Shalhoub is an amazing actor who definitely earned his Emmy for the role of Adrian Monk, and he really did make the audience feel for Adrian even in the show's funniest moments. The audience could go from laughing at Adrian one moment to truly experiencing his feelings of hurt and hopelessness and loneliness in the next. Monk ended with Adrian in quite a good place, having overcome most of his problems and having begun to fill the void in his life left from his wife's murder by building a relationship with a secret stepdaughter named Molly, whom he eventually discovers that he has. A stepdaughter whom his wife actually had earlier in life before she was killed, and which kind of gives him a re-established connection with his wife's side of the family. The show's creator, Andy Breckman, planned to make 2 follow-up TV movies after Monk ended, one where Monk gets married again and goes to France only to have his new wife try to kill him, and another where he works with Molly to investigate a scandal at City Hall. Both movies went unmade for various reasons. The first movie idea was shot down because it was seen as too much of a departure from the original series, which I totally agree with that. and the second movie idea was shot down for budgetary reasons. Funny story, I once reached out to Andy Breckman on Twitter a few years ago to ask if he'd ever be willing to share the script from the second unmade movie, since it never went anywhere since the script was written, unlike the script for the first one, and since I felt like it would be a fun little read. And he oh so graciously responded to me with these little guys right here. It was really kind of him. The planned movies didn't work out, but the Monk cast did reunite briefly in 2020 to do a short called Mr. Monk Shelters in Place for Peacock's at-home variety show. The cast members played themselves in a Zoom chat to discuss how they were all reacting to COVID-19. It was totally hilarious seeing Tony Shalhoub as the germophobic Adrian Monk dealing with the threat of COVID, but the short, in true Monk fashion, like the TV show, also had a pretty serious bent to it, as its whole point was to raise public awareness about COVID-19. Anyway, it looks like this time the follow-up movie idea is going to stick, and the movie will be made. The idea won't be shot down, the script is not going to be stuck in a vault someplace. This movie is actually going forward. According to the reports, this movie is going to be called Mr. Monk's Last Case, and will be set in real time about 13 years after the original show and in a post-COVID world. I cannot wait to see how Adrian Monk is even going to handle that, though I feel like Tony Shalhoub's on-the-money portrayal of the character in the Quarantine short may present a decent indication of where that character will go in the movie. Adrian had overcome most of his problems and his phobias and his mental issues by the end of the original Monk series, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, if COVID-19 just makes him revert to his old habits, or what exactly will happen with that character in the movie. The movie story will apparently be about how Adrian Monk returns to solve one last very personal case involving Molly, who's preparing to get married. That sounds like the genesis of a pretty good Monk movie to me, but I do wonder about two things with regards to that. First, I know that the title and the premise of the movie is about Adrian solving one last case, but I'm really not sure that I'm buying the one more time premise. That's been done to death now, and these popular characters always have a way of finding their way back after their so-called last hurrahs. That trend of doing a last adventure, then coming back eventually for more, started trending with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes, and it was still popular when Hugh Jackman announced that he'd be Wolverine in Deadpool 3, despite quitting after 2017's Logan. So it's been going on for quite a while, that trend of one last time, just kidding. So despite the title and premise, I wouldn't be surprised at all if more Monk movies were made later after this one, assuming of course that this one does well enough for Peacock. Second, I'm more than a little confused regarding the whole angle with Molly's wedding. Molly as a character was pushing 30 by the time that the Monk series ended, so she'd probably be in her mid-40s by the time the movie comes around, since the movie is supposed to follow the series in real time. I understand that people are getting married now way later than they used to, but I'm still a little curious there. Is Molly getting remarried? Is she getting married for the first time because the right person just hasn't come along before now? It just seems a little odd. I don't know, I'll wait to see the movie, see how they approach it. Anyway, it'll be cool to see where they go with this follow-up movie. It'll also be really interesting to see how people react when it's released. I really don't think that Monk, the series, is the kind of show that could be made today. And Andy Breckman even addressed that in an interview with the Huffington Post several years ago. Monk was created, aired, and ended before half of America started living to please 10% of Twitter users, and before the woke mob hijacked everything having to do with broadcasted entertainment in Hollywood. I personally believe Monk was always respectful as a TV show in its portrayal of Adrian and his myriad mental issues. Their effects were often played as jokes in the show, but the character of Adrian himself was never treated as the joke. And the writers always treated the gravity of Adrian's very damaged personality with profound thoughtfulness. But we, unfortunately, now live in an age where people will rend garments at the first sign of humor that challenges their own overblown expectations, and even more so at the first sign of mental illness depictions that don't tally with their own perspectives of how those conditions should be shown on screen. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the audience reaction to this movie when it airs. I'm looking forward to it, and God willing, I'll be reviewing it when it actually does come out. I honestly think a Monk movie is overdue by now, if anything, especially since Psych, which was a less watched, less groundbreaking, but still very good show that formerly aired on USA, has gotten 3 follow-up movies since it concluded in 2013 with way poorer ratings than Monk had. At any rate, let me know what you think. How do you feel about the fact that Monk is finally getting a revival film after the 2 other failed attempts? Am I the only one who still even remembers this show? It's pretty old now, I guess, so I don't know. Sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, click subscribe, and please ring that bell. So long.